Welcome into episode 5 of Inside Fever Basketball. I'm Pat Boylan, and this has been an episode that I've been really looking forward to doing really since draft night. Emily Engstler is here with us now. We're going to go back and talk about your story and really how you got to this point and some of your goals going forward here. And part of the reason I've been really looking forward to this is because you have such a unique story with how you found basketball in New York City. So I'm wondering, when you go back and think about yourself as a youngster, when did basketball first kind of enter into the picture, enter into the frame for you?
Yeah, I went to Resurrection Ascension. It was my, pre-K, preschool till 8th grade kind of schooling in Middle Village, Queens. And we played CYO basketball, but there was no girls team. So I played with the boys for since I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade up until I graduated in 8th grade. And that was really what started it for me. And then, when I got to Roosevelt Island, I started playing pickup on the street courts of Roosevelt Island, and I got to meet all these new friends, mainly men, mainly guys from all different ages. I'm talking guys who were 12, my age, 13, to 65, 70 years old. And it was just it's such a unique experience, having those support you. Now, being 22, that was 10 years ago when I started playing there, so.
What I guess went through your mind as you're a kid and you've got these, New York City street courts and you've got grown adults there? I mean, was there ever a question of wanting to play against these older men? Was that ever intimidating?
Yeah, at first, I'll be real with you, I didn't just get on the court right away. I was really little when I first started, so they didn't let me on. But when they became a part where they could see, I don't even think it was a girl thing. I think it was just I was a kid. And then I got a little older, I got a little taller, a little stronger. And no, I never really thought about it like that. I just went on, and they didn't really, give me any leeway either. They would, if someone had my shot blocked into the river, it was getting blocked into the river. And I was pissed, but I got better from it every time. So, no, I never really thought about it like that. They were all pretty supportive too, if I messed up or something like that. They talked me through it because I was young.
As you're starting to grow a little bit and college becomes a potential option for you, you started at Syracuse, you're in New York. Can you kind of take me through that moment maybe as a high schooler when you start to realize that, maybe I could do this at the collegiate level. Maybe I could get my college paid for by playing college basketball?
Yeah, I started at Christ the King, and that was my freshman year of high school. And I think that's when we started talking to Syracuse and a couple of schools, and I realized, okay, I guess I can play at the collegiate level if I continue to do what I'm supposed to do. And then I ended up transferring to St. Francis Prep for 3 years. And, we fought to become this team that, wasn't last place anymore, because that's where we were when I started. And as we were fighting, as awards were kind of coming in, I didn't think I was going to get an All-American, but I did. I didn't think I was going to do this, but I had. And when those started coming in my senior year, I realized, okay, I can really go to college and not just play, but maybe play at a high level and do well and, help this Syracuse program that already was good, I was going in with such amazing players. And we did pretty decent my freshman year. But, I think it started freshman year, but my senior year is really when I realized, okay, I can do something in college, I can compete with these players and hopefully get to the WNBA.
As you're at Syracuse, that COVID moment happens where I think every college athlete, I'm sure, started to wonder, what's the immediate future as COVID hits. But this was really a transformative time for you, right? I mean, when you really started to, I don't know, maybe figure out the version of you that you're seeing now?
Yeah. Sophomore year was tough. We weren't winning. As a team, I think we were struggling in aspects that I just couldn't figure out. And I think COVID is a terrible thing that happened, but for me, I used it in a positive way when it came to getting 3 months to be with my family. Some time away from, when the basketball gets stressful, you kind of want to get away from it and you can't because you're there all year. So that was good. I got home and I just looked at my mom and my sister mainly, and I was just like, can you help me out? Like, you both bring something different for it. My sister really likes to work out. My mom cooks really well. And I just thought as a combination, they could help me figure out me and my body and just what I could do better. And then I wasn't even thinking about basketball, though, at all. I feel like you have to separate it. I didn't shoot a ball for 4 months. Like, I didn't shoot a ball since the moment I got home to the moment I went back to college. Not only were the hoops down, but I didn't want to shoot a ball. You know, I feel like you can't juggle it all at once. You got to step by step it. So I kind of took a step back to eventually take that step forward. And I think it took about those 3 months at home, maybe 3 more months at Cuse until I fully lost all the weight, felt a little better. You know, Syracuse was Syracuse. Obviously, I ended up transferring, but I got to be there with some special people that I really cared about for 3 years. So
It was a place that I know you really cared about and in your home state. Was it difficult to make the decision to transfer?
Yes and no. I mean, I think the New York person who had that dream at Syracuse, who made all these friends, and I could walk into a deli, seriously, at Syracuse, and I would know the guy behind the counter. Like, you just made these relationships in this little town, and I didn't want to leave him. If I felt so comfortable there, I stopped even wanting to go, you know, home and visit family. I said, come up to Syracuse. I really, really enjoyed the university, and I have a lot of people in the program from Syracuse women's basketball that I still speak to today. But at the end of the day, I realized, like, it just wasn't a match for me basketball-wise if I really wanted to go to the league, because the dream was starting to fade and I was getting a little nervous. And, you know, I went home and I spoke to the people really close to me about it. And as a family group, we just thought that was going to be the best decision for me. And I got really lucky because Louisville was just such a perfect fit for everything I needed and they needed, you know.
As you're making that decision, what ultimately led you to land at Louisville? And in hindsight, this ended up being maybe one of the best decisions you've ever made. Was there any doubt at the time?
There wasn't a doubt that the program wasn't good, that Louisville wasn't, you know, this really amazing program, that the coaches weren't selling this amazing opportunity, that the girls weren't really cool, that the player. It was more of like, okay, when I get there, are they going to still be this way? You know, you get sold these dreams just like I got sold the Syracuse dream, you know, and I'm not saying it wasn't fully fulfilled, but you get sold these dreams as a recruiter, and I'm not a 12th grader anymore. You know, I've been through the process. So I was trying to use, like, what I knew from being in college to, like, you know, okay, is he telling the truth here? Is he really a family guy here? Do the coaches really care here? Because I told Coach Wells, and you can call him right now. I said, I'm looking for a family aspect. Like, it's my last year and I want a relationship with you. I want a relationship with the girls. I want to win and I want to go to the league, but, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want just that. I want more. And if you can provide that, then I'll do whatever I can to get you to this Final Four that we talked about since the moment we got on the phone.
What was that Final Four experience like, that run?
Yeah, that was crazy. I think after we lost in the ACC tournament, you know, we sat down and we just kind of, as a collective, and this is without the coaches. The coaches sat down and the players sat down and we kind of just figured it out. You know, you got to just lock in with your teammates and lock in with your coaching staff. And we all really just locked into this game plan, whether the game plan was perfect or the game plan sucked. We knew that if we locked in, we would get far. And that stretch was awesome. It was such a good feeling. And at that time, you're close with the girls. You know, you're not some new transfer anymore. And, you know, you got to win with people you really love. So I had an amazing time going to the Final Four.
You talked numerous times in the last couple of answers about the dream of getting to the league. So clearly this was a big picture goal kind of in the forefront of your mind for a long time. I'm wondering, as you're at Louisville, are you somebody that's ever going on Google and looking up mock drafts?
Oh, no.
No?
No. You know, you see him on, I'm not the biggest social media person in the world.
Okay.
So sometimes you see him just scrolling through your Instagram or something and you're kind of like, you know, am I on there? Am I low? Am I high? Cool. More times it's sent to you. You know, someone sent you something and you're just like, but I spoke to Wells a lot and he was like, whether you're the first, whether they have you as the first pick, obviously I wasn't, or the 25th pick, like, it's not, the mock draft doesn't mean anything. Like,
right.
In that aspect of, you're going to get picked where you're going to get picked, and he thinks, and he thought at the time you're going to go first round. And I was kind of like, okay, sure. Like, I mean, I hope, I guess, but I didn't really, I guess, believe it until they called my name. But no, you're not, I wasn't scouting for it. I was just trying to honestly go to a Final Four, win an ACC championship, you know. I was focused in what I was focused in, and I felt like if I took care of that, then the rest would just kind of work out.
The reason I ask, obviously, you can only take mock drafts so far. But to me, the very best one comes from ESPN. It's Michelle Vopel, who's very tied into both the women's collegiate game and the WNBA one. And the reason I ask all this is because if you go back and look at one that she had out on February 17th, so less than 2 months before the draft, she did not have you going in the first round. You look at the one that she has a month later, and she's got you going mid-late first round. The one right before the draft, she has you going fourth, which is where you ended up. It was quite a dramatic swing for you, I think, for a lot of people that didn't know you quite as well, or maybe that weren't as tied in as some. Did it feel like that massive of a jump for you, that back half of your year at Louisville, in terms of your potential to get not only into the league, but into the first round to become a top 4 pick?
Yeah, I just think it's funny because, like, how you said when she put out the first one, my coaching staff at Louisville and a couple coaches in my life back home were telling me that I was going top 5 from the jump. Like, from the jump of when we started, like, you're going to go top 5. Trust me. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, we don't know how you're technically going to do down the stretch, but I promise you, if you just play how you are with this team and we win a little bit more than you were used to winning, you're going to go top 5, at least top 10. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, if I don't, we're going to have some words then because you're swearing now. But I was like, okay, and then when the time came to the tournament, I had a decent year. I knew I'd at least get drafted, I was hoping. And then I was like, I mean, all we got to do is win games. As political as that sounds, like, if you're someone who wasn't really in the draft conversation before you even got to your senior year, going to a good program and finding where you fit and winning games all helps your draft stock. Like, I mean, I think I'm a good basketball player, but I also had really good teammates around me who fed me the ball here, who I fed the ball there, who, college isn't the WNBA. It's different. It's more play filled and defensive, and there's just little things there that you can do with wins that get you a better draft stock. And I mean, I kind of knew once I got to the tournament, if we just won, the higher I'd go up. But it was kind of a win-win because I wanted to go to a Final Four no matter how high I went up in the draft. So.
You did go to a Final Four, and then you went in the top 4 of the draft. You went 4th overall, of course, to the Fever. What was that moment, having that dream fulfilled, hearing your name not only called on draft night, but as high as you ended up getting selected? Yeah,
that was awesome. That was what a feeling. I mean, I wish my brother and sister was at that table with me. That's the only thing that would have made that moment a little better. But they were down the street. But yeah, getting up and hugging my mom, I was like, Mom, please don't cry when I hug you because I'm going to cry. And then she didn't. For the first time in my life, she's not emotional about it. I'm like, perfect, good, we're going, we're hugging. I go up to Coach Norman, I'm like, when I'm going to Coach Norman, I can see like the rest of the people at the draft. So that was really cool. And you got the other girls that you've met and their parents cheering for you just from like, meeting them in the 2 days. That was really cool. And then you get up on the thing and you take a picture and you're like, okay. And then you have Holly Rowe, who decides to ask me, a surprise question that we didn't like pre-plan, and I couldn't hold it back. I got emotional. But I mean, it is what it is. That's a moment that I feel like all the questions you've asked, I only really realized it was going to happen till I was sitting at that table. It wasn't something that I thought was going to happen when I first got to Louisville, even though it was a goal. It wasn't something I thought was going to happen when I first got to college, even though it was a goal. So I feel like it felt so surreal that I had to let out the little bit of a cry, but it was awesome. It was a great night.
That moment, I'm sure, has to be so fulfilling, maybe even a little overwhelming. I'm wondering when a player who's drafted in a scenario like yours, when do you start to take stock of, okay, I'm on the Fever, and oh yeah, they've got 4 first-round draft picks, and I'm going to find out a teammate of mine potentially in 2 picks from here and 4 picks later after that. When did you start putting all of the pieces together of how many rookies would be joining you?
Yeah. So after I got drafted, List had texted me right away, and that was cool. And I was like, because, I mean, I knew List went, but then I'm like being rushed to media, and I'm like barely have my phone on me. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to play with List. Like, this is cool. I was just, in my college career and watching her do all her amazing things that she did her senior year. And then now you don't know who's getting picked. You're in the back, you have no idea what's going on. So I'm like, can you guys try to update me? Like, I want to know who goes where. And then you're just friends with them. So you're curious. You want to know where I don't know, Kirsten went or whoever else was with you. And then I saw Lexi went 6th, and I was like, oh snap! Like this is gonna change a lot of the first round because she's not here. And then I just thought back. I'm weird like this. I just thought about how many games I watched at Stanford and like what she could do, and then Queen, who, I knew Queen beforehand, so I was really excited that Queen got drafted to the Indiana Fever. I had DM'd her, and I was like, no way! Like, we've never played together, and we've been cool. We've always had like a connection as a friend, so I was really excited about Queen. And then Henny got drafted, and I was like, dang, like, we got like really, really good rookies, But I think I knew it was going to be a process, and it wasn't something that was going to just happen this year. So you kind of have to get ready for that. That it might take a couple years. You've
got not only a bunch of teammates joining you, but also other players that played in the Final Four. I mean, all 5 of those draft picks. I guess, what's that like as a player when all of a sudden you're watching this super team of all of these great college players all of a sudden kind of form together as draft picks and part of a group that you're going to be joining?
Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I just watched I'm leaving the Final Four, and I just watched Henny play and win a championship, and I'm like, dang. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dang, did she even get to go back? I'm literally like, did she even get to go back to celebrate? Like, I'm about to see her tomorrow, And then Baylor went high. They did well all season, and then Lexi went to God knows how many Final Fours of her own, save for Henny. So you just know you're playing with people who have experience at a high level, who win a lot of games. So I think us coming here, it just gives us like that grit. Like, whether we're doing well or not right now, it's gonna come kind of situation. You have rookies who are used to winning and they want to win, and vets as well who came from schools who won. So I'm excited for next year, honestly.
You mentioned it with Henny, but it's really true for all of you. When you play that far into your college season, the college season ends, the draft happens immediately, you're in training camp, all of that happens so quickly. What was that transition like for you, for all these rookies?
No, it was actually really hard. I'm not going to lie. It's just annoying. It was kind of annoying. You just got out of a Final Four. You kind of want to take a breath. You want to see your family for more than one day. You kind of want to go celebrate with your team at the same time. You want to pack. You want to do this. You want to just sleep. Like, there's so many things, and then you just find yourself the next day in training camp, and it's like, dang, this is the most fast, like, experience I've ever been in my entire life. But awesome, grateful. You're trying to make sure that those emotions don't overtake the gratefulness and the living your dream part. Training camp was kind of hard. I'll be honest with you. It was tiring. It was nerve-wracking. It was, am I going to make a team? Because everyone is either making teams or getting waived, this is my livelihood. Like, this is how I'm going to provide for myself. So there's just all these emotions going through your head, and it doesn't settle down for a while. Maybe like 2 months in, and now, like, as I am right now, I feel pretty calm about our schedule more and more used to the league. But it's a process for women's basketball who are getting drafted. I honestly hope one day it does change. I hope one day that you get drafted and you can spend a couple weeks at home and take a breath and figure out where you're going to go next and all that kind of stuff.
You normally don't think of when an All-Star break hits as being really impactful maybe on a younger player. You think of maybe the older players needing the All-Star break. It was November 12th when you played your first game at Louisville, and here we are 8 months later, and you're still going. You just described the nonstop. In a way, is that All-Star break maybe more impactful for players like you and these rookies who have been nonstop going since, by the way, before November 12th? I understand that as well. It's been a really long, relentless run here, even if it's something you enjoy.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, this is a funny example, but we just went over to congratulate the Pacers Gaming on their championship, and I got to meet my guy Wolf, who's from Queens. And I asked him, I was like, well, it's kind of similar, but I was just like, this is really coming from, like, I do what I love. He obviously does what he loves, and I'm like, this is dope. Like, you're just sitting here playing video games all day. And he's probably thinking, you're just sitting and shooting a basketball all day. Like, and I'm like, but, like, do you ever just come in and just mess around? Just play 2K to play 2K? And he's like, honestly, like, not anymore. Like, this is my job. That's how I think of it. And I'm thinking, if you were to ask me the same question, when was the last time that I went? Because I used to just go play some pickup or shoot around just to shoot around, You don't come into practice. It's not that you don't come in happy. You just don't come in. It's not like a little pickup game anymore. Like, this is literally, you're going in and getting shots up to be better at your craft, not just because it's fun or you're trying to take your mind off things anymore. So it falls back into that really long season, and just, you really have to love what you do. It's not easy. And, people like to say, well, you're making all this money, you're just playing basketball. Let's switch for a year. As much hard as what you're doing, I bet you think what I'm doing is just as difficult. Physically, mentally, emotionally, all that. And I think the All-Star break thing, as much as we needed it, I think the vets do too, because, you're going out from an overseas season. Their seasons never end either. It's just kind of a never-ending cycle once you get to the league. But I think once you hit a certain age and you can invest your money and do other things and stop playing overseas and settle down, that's when things become a little more easier and you can just focus on WNBA.
You mentioned a lot of those physical rigors, but also there have to be mental ones, I would imagine, as well. I mean, you go through training camp, you were touching on it earlier, all of the good names and the high-quality players that are not making rosters, even for somebody who was selected fourth. I mean, is that something that's in the back of most players' minds? Like, you got to perform day in and day out because there's so few spots and there's so much competition for it's not even really 144 anymore. It's really more like 140, 139 players in the WNBA.
Oh, it was for me, and everyone thinks I was being dramatic, but, I don't know what's going to happen. I say it all the time before I got drafted, top 10 kind of doesn't mean what it should be. If you compare us to going to the NBA or the NFL, you know for a fact you're going nowhere. You're getting a $5 million rookie contract. We are still struggling to make a roster. That is it's kind of sad. I mean, and then you have our second round and our third round who are obviously super talented in their own, and it's you might go third round and it's people are usually telling you if you go third round, you're probably not going to make a roster. Geez, what was the point of going third round? It's frustrating for these amazing women athletes who, I'm just hoping they keep expanding. Even for my own stuff, I might have made it now, but will I make it next season? Will I make it my fourth season? Will I be in here my eighth season? It's just so unstable. Dude, you don't live in the same place year round. You're moving constantly. You don't have this home. It's a lot. You gotta love what you do, and I mean, we obviously all do because we're here and we're doing it. And you also have to just understand to find the little things in what you do and appreciate them. Just even if it was me seeing my favorite players, seeing a Candace Parker in person, or Breonna Stewart, DT Subert, all these amazing players. Jewel Lloyd, everybody, and just soaking in that moment. That's what we should be grateful for. Not thinking about in 3 months how I have to go overseas for the first time and not, know a lick of the language. Just live in the moment is my best advice.
Speaking of those moments, it had to be a special one for you. Just a few games into the season, you go back to New York, you go to Brooklyn, you're playing the Liberty, all your family's there. It's a dramatic victory. Take me through that day.
Yeah, that was cool. My family was a little embarrassing, but nah, they were awesome. They were amazing. They were right behind me. I could hear every word that came out of every one of their mouths. But it was really nice to turn around and see my mom again in the crowd. Even though obviously, I just left college, but it was awesome to do it on a professional level. And I didn't grow up watching the Liberty in the Barclays Center, but I grew up watching them play in Madison Square Garden. I went with my aunt. I went with my dad. I've watched, so it was just dang, they're coming to watch me. So it was awesome. And I didn't just have my parents there. I had cousins who I haven't seen in a while. I had best friends that I've went to literally second grade with come and see me play, who I haven't seen since I was in 8th grade. So it was just amazing. That was a crazy experience. I got to experience it twice, so it was cool.
You talked about Candace Parker and some of these players you looked up to. What has been your biggest wow moment in terms of facing an opponent, maybe a player that you grew up looking up to?
I'm going to give Tina Charles her shout out because I grew up watching her play in the Garden, and Piff, but she has been wowing me all season. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm actually here watching her do it to me or my teammate, but she's just such a phenomenal player, and she's also, she showed me respect. She walked in, she was a queen, she went to Christ the King. She said hello to me, She's just a nice person to have a conversation with in its own. But as a basketball player, every time we play her, whether it was, the last game we played her, it was Phoenix, she's just phenomenal. She's so, she's someone that, if you're a young player, watch Tina Charles. Someone who's, plays a 4 or 5 position that can just aggressively rip it and go to the basket. Post moves are unstoppable, shoots the 3. She is someone who has, relatively starstruck me. Someone who I can say I watched growing up, went to the same high school I went to, did everything that I'm trying to do now, and she's still doing it as a vet. And yeah, shout out to her. She's done amazing this season. She's been someone I've been watching to get my game better as.
This might not be something you think about. This might be something that broadcasters and journalists think a little bit about more. But it kind of strikes me when I watch you play, see your style, I can't really come up with like an Emily Engstler comp, a player who plays quite like you. Can you think of anybody?
I guess like the most similar player would be like a Sabali, a Setu.
Mm-hmm.
Like her game, Breonna Stewart, the taller fours who are more like, versatile off a wing. But I guess I'm a little shorter than them, so I feel like that's where it's hard to like kind of pin that what is it called? Comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I try to do it more and more. It's a little harder than WNBA. I'm getting more used to it. But I that's a good thing because I'm trying to use my defense as something that allows me to stick out. So I'm not too comparable, You want to be your own player. But yeah, I think I can compare to players like that, aggressive wings who, just can also get in there, post up, play defense, run the floor, shoot the three, stuff like that.
A phrase that we've used on the broadcast, Bria, Tully, and I a few times now throughout the year has been that patented Emily Engstler stat line. I'm talking about 8 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, 3 steals. You're just kind of across the board. Do you take pride in kind of seeing a stat line like that where you're impactful in literally every single statistical category?
Yeah, those are the games. Those are the ones I shoot for every night. I'm not that 40-point scorer. I think every team that's ever had me play for them understands that and knows that. I'm still trying to work on my offensive game in this league and see where I fit. But, if it means 5 points, 6 boards, 3 steals, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, that's the fun part. You get a steal, score a layup, block somebody's shot. Like, I mean, it's cool to be versatile. It's cool to be able to do other things. It's fun to be able to get the passion from defense and then allow that to have another teammate score offensively. And I think that when I play well on those nights and have decent stat lines like that, it helps the team, So when I don't, it's frustrating, because it's not only just a job, but who likes to lose? You want to help your team every night as best as you can, and that's, I feel like, why they drafted me, for my versatility in that aspect. So I definitely shoot to do that every night that I can.
That said, there are a lot of things that you do that you don't find on the stat sheet, the charges taken, the deflections, the stuff like that. Does that bother you at all? So sometimes what you're doing is not shown numerically, I guess.
Not really. I feel like it's been like that since college. In college, at Louisville, after the game, we'd come in and Coach B would have like all the deflections written down, the charges, and they would make a really big emphasis of those non-stat line things and make us feel really good about it. So I think I just carried that on as a person. So I'll know if I had a good deflection night, and I'll be like, all right, you might not have, maybe you missed the layup, which I'm working on, but your hands were everywhere. So I try to, you don't want to just go home and tell yourself every negative thing that you did, you'll go stir crazy. So you got to pick and watch film and understand what you're doing well as a rookie. We're still rookie. I feel like I forget I'm a rookie sometimes. Because it's not an excuse, but it's still a fact, and I'm still getting used to this league,
As of this conversation now, and you've really led the league in offensive rebounding for most of the year, which I think is especially impressive considering, you're playing about 20 minutes per game. There are other players who have more minutes right now, and you're still ahead of them. You're 6th or so in blocks. Are you pleased with how the defensive portion of your game has translated seemingly so relatively quickly?
Not fully yet. I think there's a lot of things defensively I'm still getting used to. Even like I was just talking to a teammate about this. I think it was Bria. Like going for a steal in the league, that would be a clear steal going for a layup in college. Like have my hands on the ball, they're still ripping through and grabbing it and going, and I'm like coming up short, and I'm like, dang, like, they're just stronger, more aggressive. It's little things like that. Timing, the quickness of timing to go for those steals, or being careful with steals down low on the dribble, because if you miss, then they're going right by you. Just learning the having to know 100 coverages a night, like just things that they do a lot in WNBA on every team that maybe I just didn't have to do in college, or being a step behind. It's just stuff that you only learn by playing more games. So I'm just trying to get better at it every day, every game.
What are some of your goals for the remainder of this season? But I'm especially interested in bigger picture. When you're sitting here a year from now, 3 years from now, what do you want to have accomplished? Where do you want to be?
Yeah, this season is, it's obviously coming more towards the end. I just want to keep being someone that's positive for this team. But future-wise, whether I'm here or somewhere else, hopefully I'm here building with this team. But I mean, I can sit here and say I want to get MVP one day. I want to do this. I want to be in an All-Star game. I think everybody who comes to the WNBA wants to do those things. Of course I want to do those things. But I think my goal is more of just becoming more of a little bit of an offensive threat in such an offensive league. Continuously working on myself as a player, as a teammate, and just maybe next year, instead of coming short, getting those double-doubles consistently that will help the team. I don't know, maybe working on those steals. I haven't done as much as I did in college. Honestly, my thing is just getting better every year. I think if you focus on that, then those accolades will come, and you won't even realize it. And 4 years later, you'll see yourself at an All-Star game, and you'll be like, oh, cool, like I did it. You can do that, but that's just the way I look at things.
A couple of reflection questions here before we wrap up. I want you to think back to a year ago right now. You had already made the decision to transfer, but of course your senior season hadn't yet happened. And when you think about where you are now, what first comes to your mind in all of the growth and everything that you've accomplished in the last 365 days?
Yeah. Just that I not to hold back on trusting people even when your trust has been maybe a little taken away. I think that I look back at giving, Coach Walls that chance of just allowing him in, that whole coaching staff, and just them allowing me in, I'm not perfect. There's plenty of mistakes that I bet we can all find on each other in our past. And I made this decision that I consistently think back on the day we talked on the first time I talked to him on the phone. And I'm just really glad I took that risk, is what I'm saying. Not everybody is a bad guy. Not everybody's going to be a snake. And especially in businesses like the WNBA, the NBA, where things are a little more competitive because it's about money, you can still trust people. People are still good, And that's what I reflect back on. And I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of a program that made me grow in such amazing ways. And I hope that I was able to do what I could for them.
As we bring this conversation full circle here, I think it's probably safe to say, as long as you had found basketball, it probably wouldn't have mattered where you grew up. You would have been a good player. But how impactful do you think those days when you are young and you're playing on the New York City streets, Roosevelt Island and Queens, how impactful was that on the person, the style of player you are now?
I think the best comparison to how I grew up was how I played at Louisville. I'm a little short of it now, passion-wise. I just mean that person who was maybe talking a little bit or chest bumping Mikasa into the stands after a steal. That was from growing up in New York. And I think that it'll come back. I just, you got to get comfortable whenever you move to the next level. I'm not worried about it, but that's the person I want everyone to remember when I think back of, oh, you grew up in New York. How did that play a role? That was my Louisville year. That's from growing up in New York and just being around the right people who brought it out in me and allowed me to do it. Allowed me to be so competitive that I, let her talk a little bit. Maybe it'll help us out. Stuff like that. And that's kudos to Louisville's program. But I still very much enjoyed my time at Syracuse. It just wasn't where I left off. So, when I think back, I'm always going to think of that last year.
What's your message here to the Fever fans that have been following along, that I think are eagerly watching this young core build, and they'll continue to build?
Yeah, hold on. Just hold on to us. Give us some time. Time is always just a positive factor in things, and even if it's not next year, give us some time. Building and keeping players and actually building does not take one season. You can look back on numerous teams in the WNBA that weren't where they are today, and I bet it took 2 to 4 years for them to get to late playoffs or even a championship or etc. So just hold on and keep supporting us. Come to games. I think we try to do a really good job of interacting with the fans and stuff like that. So just be there, and we really appreciate all the fans that we do have.
Well, Emily, thanks for opening up here. We really appreciate the perspective, and best of luck here as your rookie season it starts to wind down.
Thank you.
That's Emily Engstler here on episode 5 of Inside Fever Basketball. Make sure you are following us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back soon with another edition of Inside Fever Basketball. I'm Pat Boylan. Thanks for watching.